Welcome on back to the All Aussie Rules Footy Podcast. This is episode 71. This is AFLW week number 10. Final round of the AFLW is coming up this week, and we'll be checking out all of those matches, all of the scenarios heading into finals. We'll also be, before we do that, we'll be checking all of last week's matches, all the winners, all the best players, as we do each and every week in one of the two episodes of the podcast that we bring out every week. Monday is AFLW Day. Friday is AFL Men's Day. Two podcasts every week. So stick around, like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. Let's jump into the first match of the weekend. From last weekend, it was Hawthorn Melbourne. It was the Hawks and the D's. Up in Cairns. Big game. Both teams fighting. I mean, Hawthorn wrapped up a top 4 spot, maybe even top 2. But we'll see how that goes for them this weekend. Whereas Melbourne lost, which maybe spells the end of their season. If they had have won, they would be in a position where a win this week would have sealed them finals, whereas now they need to win this week and pretty much hope that Essendon lose, or Port Adelaide lose by about 150 points or so, which isn't really likely to happen. So yeah, this was the game. Ended up being 3-5-23 for the Hawks, 2-5-17 for the Demons, so neither team was overly accurate in this one. First quarter, pretty close. Hawthorn had the 6-point lead. They kicked away in the second quarter, up until halfway through the third quarter. Melbourne only had one goal. Hawthorn had 3. They had 3 by half time. And then last quarter was 3 points for the Demons, 0 for Hawthorn. Bit of a low-scoring finish to this game. But Hawthorn held on. They get the win, and that's huge for their season because means that if they win this week, they lock up second spot. And if they lose, potentially still could have second, depending on what happens with the Brisbane Lions. So a really, really good result for them, and one that's really set them up. They've had a really good run. They haven't lost in a lot of weeks now, and they've only lost one game for the season. So things are going really well in Hawkland, whereas the Demons have kind of just... They've had a tough run, there's no doubt about it. There's a lot to be said about the AFLW schedule, sorry. You're never going to be able to make it even when there's 11 games, but 18 teams. It's the way it is. I can't see a world where 18 games works at the moment for the AFLW. It will eventually, hopefully in 2-3 years' time. It's just not ready for that yet. But so there are going to be these discrepancies where Hawthorn haven't had anywhere near as tough a season schedule-wise as Melbourne has, which is unfortunate for Melbourne. It's bad luck for them. But at the end of the day, it's the system that it is. It has to be that way, unfortunately. And that's how it is. So Melbourne, their poor start to the season has certainly cost them. A look at the numbers in this one. Disposals were pretty close, but Hawthorn did dominate the inside 50s, plus 11. So controlled the territory battle, I guess, in this game quite a lot. Efficiency for inside 50 for both teams was horrible. It kind of happens a lot in AFLW, which comes down to a fair few reasons. Forward efficiency goes by inside 50s, whereas in the men's game, it's a lot different of a game. Women's game is a lot more contested. There's a lot more... a lot more contested is the main thing, but also, I guess, the ability to kick 50 metres is very, very uncommon and pretty much not possible in the AFLW. So maybe if you consider it inside 40s, maybe might be a more accurate way of adjudicating that, I guess, when you compare it to the men's game. Clearances, plus 10 for the Hawks. Domination there. 7-2 centre clearances, and also plus 5 in stoppage clearances, Melbourne were good in contested footy, but just couldn't stop the uncontested football from Hawthorn, which really controlled this game. They did turn it over a fair bit, Hawthorn, which isn't a great sign for them heading into finals, but at the same time, they got the 4 points, and that's what matters. Controlled the marks, which usually comes along with controlling the uncontested football. Tackles, +2 to Melbourne, so pretty close in that regard. Best players in this one. No multiple goal kickers, which doesn't really surprise us when there was only 5 goals kicked for the match. So 5 individual goal kickers. Best players, starting with the winning team, Hawthorn. Lucy Wales, ruckman for Hawthorn, really good, 15 touches, 5 tackles, 21 hit-outs, 3 clearances. Jasmine Fleming, probably best on ground, 23 touches and a goal, and 533 metres gained. Really crucial part of this win. Tilly Lucas-Rod was good, Emily Bates, Eliza West, all in their best. For Melbourne, a little bit harder to find, I guess, the best list. You'd probably go McNamara with 24 touches up there, 431 metres gained, was crucial. Tyler Hanks was good. Alyssa Bannon, Mackin had 23 touches, but overall, I think Hawthorn clearly were the better team in this matchup. And sorry for bumping the table. Hopefully that wasn't too annoying with the noise. But yeah, Melbourne just weren't quite there. It's kind of been the tale of their season this year. They're going to be disappointed with the fact that they're not playing finals, or unlikely to play finals this year. But at the end of the day, Hawthorn have been super all year, and the results show here. Next game up was Friday night. It was Adelaide Kangaroos. One of the bigger games of the season, really. 2 of the top 4 fancies. North Melbourne, the clear top team in the competition this year. And Adelaide, who are fairly well considered one of the top 4 teams, starting to lose a few games, which is a little bit of an issue. I mean, they've only lost 3 games all year, and the last 2 of them were against Brisbane and Kangaroos. So other top 4 teams. Their other loss was... Oh, no, the middle loss, sorry, was against Melbourne. I think it was their first one was to Brisbane. That's how I remember it anyway, whether that's true or not. Yes, they did lose to Brisbane. So that's their 3 losses. So 2 of them were top 4 teams. The other one, not the worst loss of all time against Melbourne. Whereas Kangaroos, they're flying. They haven't lost this year. They had the 1 draw in round 2. But since then, it's been all systems go for the Roos. And, I mean, they didn't dominate this one. It was pretty tight. Adelaide kicked poorly. 4 goals, 9, 33 to 6-5, 41. It's kind of been Adelaide's curse a lot this year, is their poor kicking at goal. It's certainly hurting them, and this was no exception to that. Pretty close game most of the way. First half, just over a goal margin, 10 points at half time. Kangaroos kicked away by 3/4 time to lead by 20 points. Adelaide fought their way back, kicking 2 goals, 1 to 0-1 in that last quarter. So keeping Kangaroos goalless in the last quarter was a good result, but they just did too much damage to themselves. 2 goals, 8 by 3/4 time. Same amount of scoring shots for both teams, and down by 20 points is going to make it very difficult to win games. No doubt about that. A look at some of the stats and numbers behind this game. Inside 50s was only +2 for the Kangaroos, so pretty tight there. Disposal count was pretty similar for both teams. +6 clearances for the Kangaroos was an important area of this game where they controlled it a bit. Uncontested went the way of Crows, as did the marks. Poor kicking, as we've said, though, was the difference in this one. No doubt about it. I mean, yeah, you're not going to win too many games when you kick 4 goals, 9. It certainly cost them here. Multiple goal scorers for the Kangaroos. We had Kate Sherlaw and Jasmine Garner both kicking 2 goals. And then for the Crows, it was Danielle Ponta with 3. So they were the multiple goal scorers. Best players in the game, in this game, starting with the Kangaroos as the winning team. Best on ground, Jasmine Garner, 27 touches, 2 goals, 5 clearances, 529 metres gained. A really good performance. Ash Riddell, as always, really good, 25 touches, 7 tackles. Sherlaw, 18 touches, 2 goals. And then a lot of other players that played really well. For the Crows, their best 2 players were consistently their best 2 players all year. Ebony Marinoff, once again, she does it all. 25 touches, 16 tackles. Her tackle count week in, week out is absurd. Unreal. And Hatchard, 20 touches. Really good game from her as well. It's a bit of a drop-off after that, in all honesty. They probably didn't quite have the depth of the Kangaroos in this one. And maybe that's the difference. So that's Friday night footy done. We move on to Saturday. Started with the GWS Giants v the Dockers. This was in at Henson Park in Sydney, and I mean, it kind of went the way we expected. The Dockers being a team that's fighting for well, they're going to be in the finals, potentially can still make top 4. They let themselves down a little bit through mid-season, losing 2 weeks in a row. One of them to the Hawks, which is, I mean, that's not a bad loss. Hawthorn are second on the ladder. But the other one, the week after, losing at home to Carlton by 4 points was a disappointing result, and one that might end up costing them top 4. They still can make top 4. They just need the Crows to lose this weekend coming, which is entirely possible. The Crows have a tougher game than Fremantle in this final week. But, yeah, they're going to need a result to go their way to finish top 4 now. So they were good. 7 goals, 13, 55 is, once again, not great kicking, but GWS only had 4 goals, 1. So lack of opportunities going forward, I guess, for GWS, but you kind of expect that. They're a youngish team that isn't considered one of the better chances, and yeah, that was shown here, as it has been pretty much all season long. GWS are obviously a team that's 1.5 wins for the year, so 1 win, 1 draw, and it's been a while since either of those happened. They fought okay in the first half. Second half, it ended up being a bit of a one-way traffic game, but yeah, looking at the stats in this one, plus 10 inside 50s for Fremantle, so it wasn't a complete domination in that regard, but their ability to score or have shots when going forward was really, really quite good, especially when you compare it to GWS, who went forward 33 times and only managed 4 goals, 1. So not the best efficiency up forward for the Giants. Clearances were very level. Contested footy dominated by Freo. Uncontested just the way of the Giants. Turnover game was controlled by Fremantle in this one as well. As we said, 7-13. It could have been a bigger blowout if they had have kicked straight. Tackle count was really good for GWS, plus 16. A look at the players in this one, multiple goal scorers. For the Dockers, Aisling McCarthy kicked 3, and Ola Lally kicked 2. And then for the Giants, it was Alicia Newman with 2 goals. So they were multiple goal scorers, best players. Starting with the winning team in the Dockers, as I said, Aisling McCarthy kicked 3 goals, 23 touches. I think she's best on ground in this one. A really good performance from her. Mim Strom continued her fine work in the ruck with another fine performance. She's been really good of late. 15 touches, 10 tackles, 33 hitouts. Plenty of other good players. As I said, Lally kicked 2 goals from 18 touches. East had 19 touches. O'Driscoll had 20. For the Giants, their best. They had a couple good performances, but probably Alice Parker best for them. 32 touches, 7 tackles, 8 clearances. Probably second best on ground, in all honesty. Rebecca Beeson was good with 19 touches. And Alicia Dowd in the ruck. Even though Mimstrom was really good, O'Dowd was pretty good as well. And in all honesty, has had a great season. 15 touches and a goal. Only 12 hitouts, so doesn't really do the great like the big numbers in hit out counts, but outside of that was really good. So that's that game. On to the next one. We had Giants and Power. No, not Giants. That's Gold Coast Suns and the Power. I've lost the plot. And I mean, probably like 6-7 weeks ago, this might have been looking like it was going to be a good game. But Port Adelaide have just really found their form. I think this is like, I can't even tell you exactly how many wins in a row it is. Probably can look it up. 6 wins in a row now for them. And in all honesty, probably win this week coming up as well. So could be going into finals with 7 wins in a row, which would be a fantastic effort for them. I was kind of on their bandwagon a little bit early in the season. But week 1 they played Crows and were pretty competitive. So, I mean, the proof's in my podcast weeks ago. I'm not just making this up, but they've been really good of late, and I didn't think they were going to be this good. I thought they were a team that was potentially going to make finals with a bit of luck, but they've really exceeded that. It would take an all-time catastrophe for them to miss finals now, and they're not going to get into the top 4, but potentially could have a home final if they can win and win by enough, and either Richmond or Fremantle lose. They could jump up to 5th or 6th and end up hosting a week 1 final, which would be huge for this young side that didn't have. Well, they probably internally had high hopes for this season, but externally they were not considered a team that could be anywhere near finals, and they've gone in and now won like 6 in a row, and after losing their first 4. So fantastic run from them. Controlled this game 8-10, 58 to 3-6, 24. So neither team kicked overly straight. It was pretty close at halftime, 12-point margin. But the Power were just way too strong in that second half, as we kind of expected. Inside 50s, as Gold Coast tend to do, weren't really that far off them in inside 50s. They just really struggled to score the Suns. -2, they were in inside 50s here. They did have more of the ball, the Suns, but couldn't convert it into real opportunities. Clearances went the way of the Power. Contested footy, dead level. Uncontested footy was controlled by the Suns. A really high turnover game, 73 for the Suns, 68 for the Power. And the tackle count, not huge, 69 to 58 in favour of the Power. That's the wrong button, sorry. We jump over to best players, multiple goal scorers. 2 of them, Joe Miller and Gemma Houghton, both for the Power. Both kicked 2 goals in this one, and then everybody else was single goal kickers, obviously. Best players for the Power, the winning team. Abby Dowrick, 22 touches. Gal continued her good form. Joe Miller, as I said, 2 goals, 13 touches, 5 tackles was good. Outside of that, there weren't massive ball winners or big numbers by anyone on the Power team. To be honest, the numbers across the board were pretty low. Abby Dowrick maybe gets best on ground, probably gets best on ground, second best on ground, probably goes to Charlie Rowbottom from Gold Coast. She's had a really good season, started really, really well. Had a couple leaner weeks, but back to her best this one. 26 touches, 12 tackles, 6 clearances. Really, really good in a game where the numbers from other players weren't really that huge. McLaughlin, 24 touches was good. Hard to find too many other players for the Suns that really were that good. They obviously did have a lot of the ball, but they certainly didn't make use of it. Next up, we have the Eagles and the Cats. Saturday evening football over in Perth. Afternoon local time. Evening for the Eastern States. 3-5-23 for the Eagles. Got beaten quite comfortably in the end by the Cats, 9-2-56. It's kind of been the way of West Coast season. They started really well this year, but their season has dropped off a little bit, which, you can kind of expect. They were a young team, not expected to do anything this year, so I think they've exceeded expectations, and won't be too disappointed, even though the last few weeks perhaps haven't been spectacular. In this one, they're only 2 points down at half time, well and truly in it. Only conceded 2 goals in that third quarter as well, so even though they were 14 points down, it's not a huge margin at three-quarter time, but that last quarter was one-way traffic, ended up being 56-23, so kind of kicked away with a 3-goal final quarter for the Cats, who their season technically still is alive. All they need, well, if they win and Essendon lose and Melbourne lose, they need Essendon and Melbourne to lose, they can play finals. It's not going to happen. It's very hard to see either Essendon or Melbourne losing, seeing Melbourne's playing Collingwood and Essendon's playing Carlton, who are ranked 14th and 18th on the ladder. So it's very unlikely, but it is still feasible for the Cats to play finals. A look at the stats in this one. Whereas for the Eagles, their season is officially done. It was probably already officially done before this week, due to their poor percentage. But 4 wins, 6 losses so far this year. They play Sydney this week, which is a winnable match for them. If they can end up with 5 wins this season, that would be a massive, massive get for them. Disposals, they actually dominated this game, plus 30 in disposals, but just couldn't get any ball movement going forward, really. Inside 50s, plus 6 for Geelong. Controlled most of, not the ball, but like the territory battle. Clearances went the way of the Eagles, mainly through, all through stoppage clearances, plus 10 stoppage clearances, whereas Geelong were plus 4 from the centre. Contested and uncontested football were dominated by the Eagles. Really low turnover game, which maybe suggests to me that wasn't like the ferocious kick and hopes that you kind of see a lot in AFLW. In the end, though, Geelong, just the better polished team, I guess, more experience, and they got the job done. Look at the best players here. Only one multiple goal scorer, and she did it in fine style. Aisling Maloney kicked 6 goals, only multiple goal scorer. Kicked 6 out of Geelong's 8 goals. They kicked 8, right? Yeah. Oh, 9, sorry. 6 out of their 9 goals. Really, really good performance from her. Top of the AFLW goal kicking this season, and I think she's actually even set the AFLW record for most goals in a season. Granted, last year was 10 matches, so it's the same amount of matches as last year. Obviously, there's another one to go, but really, really fantastic performance from her this week, and over the last 5 or 6 weeks has been outstanding. So 6 goals is a really good return. No doubting that. Best players, you have to give best on ground to Aisling Maloney. 18 touches, 6 goals, 7 marks. Just a really well-rounded game and kicked lots of goals. Fantastic effort. Perspacus, 27 touches, was really good. Nina Morrison was solid, as was Michaela Bowen. For the Eagles, their best player, Ella Roberts. Another really good game from her. She's had a really good season. 33 touches, 6 tackles, 5 clearances, and a goal to cap it off. Drennan was good. Sarah Lackey in the ruck was really solid. 33 hit-outs, 5 clearances. So really positive signs for the Eagles for future seasons. They've certainly shown a bit this year, but in the end, they just don't quite have that class or finish to take it to the top teams. I know Geelong technically aren't a top team, seeing that they're missing finals, but they were expected to be a finals team this year. They've had a tough draw, I wouldn't be too disappointed. It's not like they've failed. It was just a tough draw. Like, they've won 3 out of their last 5, and their 2 losses were both to teams in the finals. So I know 5th and 6th on the ladder, 5th being Fremantle, 6th Richmond. So they're not terrible losses, their start to the season was a bit rough and a bit shaky, and that's going to cost them in the end. Saturday night footy dream time, not at the G, but up in Darwin, and boy oh boy did this live up to I guess expectations. Richmond were fighting for a top 4 spot, which they might have let themselves down with a loss here. Means that I don't think they can really think about top 4 anymore. Can they even make it? Yes, they can. They would just need Adelaide and Fremantle to both lose, and they would need to win, which, I mean, it's unlikely, not against the realms of possibility. They do have a tough game against Hawthorn, though, the Tigers. A loss, they can't miss finals, but they could drop down to 7th, which would be a non-home final for them, which would be quite disappointing, and would mean they either go to Fremantle or Port Adelaide week 1 of the finals. So they'll be wanting to win this week, whereas the Dons have put finals in their own hands. No, without a doubt. If they win this week, they are through, which is a huge result. They play Carlton, who are 14th on the ladder. Massive, massive chance for them. A couple of weeks ago, I was saying they've got a tough run home, but they did enough up to that point to get themselves into a chance. And yeah, they lost to the Kangaroos by a long way, but you kind of forget about that. This result, though, against Richmond was huge. Gets them a draw, gets them enough to guarantee finals, and now they just have to try and win this week, and they'll be playing finals football, which is a great result for them. 6-6, 42 to 6-6, 42. A bit of a tipsy-turvy game, this one. Essendon kicked the first. Richmond then piled on 3 in a row. Scores level at halftime, 4-2-26 apiece. Essendon kicked away in the third quarter. Richmond got their way back, tied it up with an Ellie McKenzie goal early in the fourth quarter, and then both teams traded points throughout the last few minutes, and then Katie Brennan got it behind with about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to go in this one to tie it up, and that's how it finished, 42 apiece. Third draw of the AFLW season so far, I think, off the top of my head. That sounds right. I'm going with that. Best players in this one. Oh, before we go best players, we always do stats first. Why would I say best players? Your guess is as good as mine. Essendon actually were really good in this. Plus 51 disposals is a really big margin, especially in a game that ends up being dead level in scores. Plus 4 inside 50s for Essendon, so they controlled territory as well. They controlled the centre clearances. They controlled the stoppage clearances. Overall, plus 15 in clearance game. Uncontested footy was dominated by the Bombers. Marks 77 to 37. They just controlled the ball, controlled the play for big chunks of this one. Probably disappointed they didn't win it, in all honesty. I'm a big fan of Richmond, but I think Essendon clearly were the better team on the night and probably kicking themselves that they didn't get the win. Best players, multiple goal scorers first. Katie Brennan, 2 goals, 3 for the Tigers. And for the Bombers, it was Bonnie Toogood with 2 goals, 2 behinds. Since returning to the team from her early season injury, has really got this team going. I mean, she's not the only reason. There's plenty of other good players on their team, but they are going really well at the moment. And they played finals last year, so finals is probably what they were hoping for again this year. And they've lived up to that. So good on them. Well done to the Bombers. Best players in this one, neither team won, so we'll just start with whichever team. Richmond. Sharon, good, 23 touches, 1 goal, 9 tackles, was really solid. Mon Conti, 20 touches and a goal. I mean, she's always around the football. She's always playing really well. Grace Egan had plenty of it, 19 touches. Poppy Kelly was good in the ruck. For the Dons, it was Nance Garwin, 27 touches, 6 clearances, maybe best on ground. Close to, if not. Bonnie Toogood was really good with 18 touches, 2 goals. Perspakis, 26 touches, had plenty of it, really good. Stephanie Wales in the ruck was good, Madison Gay was good. So plenty of good players for both teams in this one. Probably more so on the side of the Bombers because we think they were probably the better team in this game, just didn't get the 4 points in the end. So that's the end of Saturday footy. We jump on to Sunday footy. We started with the Doggies and the Saints. This was at Mars Stadium, Ballarat, and it was a game that St Kilda were probably expected to win. There's no doubt about it. St Kilda are going to be disappointed where they're at the moment because they won their first 3 games of the season, sitting top of the ladder. Things were going great for the Sainers, and then since then it's been a bit of one-way traffic the opposite direction because they've only managed 1 win out of their last 7 matches. They've dropped to 11th on the ladder. They have Brisbane this week, which again is a potential loss, which would see potentially 2 or maybe even 3 teams past them. Probably won't see that many, but could. And they could end up 13th or 14th on the ladder, which after being 3-0 after 3 weeks and top of the ladder, not the best result. I think they were clearly overperforming at that point, but at the same time, probably should have made finals from there. But it is what it is. 5-6, 36 for the Dogs. 5-5, 35 for the Saints, who were leading all the way through the first half, then kicked away again early in the second half to be up by 14 points early in the second half. But the Doggies just pegged them back, kicked 3 in a row to take a lead early in the fourth before Saints got one back, tied it up, and then there was a behind by Heidi Woodley about halfway through the last quarter, and then there was no more scores after that. The Doggies get a good win. They weren't expected to do this well this year. I know it's only 4 wins, 6 losses, so it's not a great season, but when you look at it, where their season started, this is a great end to their season because they were looking a long way off the pace early days. They had a couple bad weeks recently where they weren't even close. They got smacked by Kangaroos and then smacked by the Bombers. But they followed that up with 2 wins, one against Carlton and then this one against St Kilda, who, granted, both teams are not finals contenders, but good results. They weren't expected to do much this year. They were bottom of the ladder last year. Their start to the season was disastrous, but they are certainly going well enough at the moment. They're still a long way from finals, but it's been a good turnaround for them, which is the exact opposite of the Saints. So I'll look at the stats for this one. Doggies, all Doggies, plus 42 disposals, plus 5 inside 50s. St Kilda did win clearances, but uncontested football. 144 to 99 for the Doggies. Really positive sign for them this year. 62 to 43 marks, really good. And tackle count was pretty low for both teams. I mean, Bulldogs are typically a low tackle team, but 61 to 65 for the Saints. And then multiple goal scorers, only 2 of them, both for the Saints. Ashley Richards and Nat Exxon both kicked 2 goals. Best players, firstly for the Bulldogs as the winning team, as we always do. Probably best on ground, Jessica Fitzgerald, 26 touches and a goal, 6 clearances, really good performance. Dominique Carruthers, 18 touches and a goal. Pritchard had 24 touches. And then just well-rounded game. Deanna Berry, 21 touches and a goal. Plenty of good players on the side of the Doggies. Meanwhile, for the St Kilda Saints, it was similar names to always. Jessie Wardlaw, 18 touches, 11 hit-outs, was okay in the ruck. Serene Watson was good, 21 touches. Obviously, both their multiple goal scorers were good. Jamie Lambert, okay. But overall, Bulldogs were the better team. Probably should have won by more than they did, but they got the 4 points, which is huge for them. At the moment, it's all about developing their young players and giving them that winning feeling, and they've managed to do it a few times this year now. That's 4 wins, so a positive for them, no doubt about it. Next up was battle of another 2 teams that are not playing finals, and in all honesty, both of them are a long way away from finals. It ends up being Carlton winning at 5-2, 32 to Collingwood 4-4, 28. It was pretty tight first quarter. Carlton kicked away by a couple goals in the second quarter. And then looked home and hosed, up 15 points late in the third. Collingwood managed to come back and take the lead 6 minutes into the last quarter. But the Blue Baggers get a goal a few minutes later through Dana Finn, and then just hold on for the 4-point win. Not the most convincing victories of all time, but a win nonetheless. Looks almost certain now that Collingwood are going to get the wooden spoon. 1 win from their 10 matches. Playing Melbourne this week, you'd think is a very unlikely win for them. If they did win, they would not finish wooden spoon because they would go above Gold Coast and potentially GWS, provided both lose, but definitely one of those two will lose. Whereas Carlton, they're sitting 14th on the ladder. They play the Dons this week, probably lose that, and 14th on the ladder. They can't go any lower. Arguably could go up depending on results above them, but they're going to be in that range of 12 to 14. Sorry. A bit disappointing for them, but I mean, I don't think they had that higher hopes coming into this season. Looking at the numbers of this one, Carlton controlled it, no doubt about it. The fact that they were down in that last quarter would have been a bit of a shock to them because they kind of did control the game. Plus 13 inside 50s. Won the clearance game. Collingwood were really good in the centre clearances, but just the stoppage clearances Carlton dominated. Carlton controlled the uncontested football, as a lot of teams that win games do. Plus 25 in tackle count as well was a really good result for Carlton. And they ended up with the 4 points, which at the end of the day is all that they could really get from this one. No multiple goal scorers in this game. Both teams just all single goal kickers, best players. Starting with the winning team, Carlton, Keely Shearer, 24 touches and a goal, best on ground. Really good performance. Mimi Hill was good, Lily Goss. Dana Finn, as we said, kicked the match winner. Her first ever AFLW goal, and it's a match winner, so fantastic effort there for her. For the Pies, bit different than their usual names. I guess, they're missing their captain through injury. Benici was solid with 20 touches. She's always mentioned in there, but some of these other ones, Imogen Barnett, Jordan Allen were good, both kicking and goal, mid-teen touches. Michaela Can, 21 touches and a goal. Sabrina Frederick has had a good year in the ruck, and yesterday was no different. But overall, Carlton were just the better team in this one, and they got the win. Final game of the round, it was up in Brisbane. It was the Lions. It was the Swans. Rematch of the AFL men's grand final, and in all honesty, same result. Look at it, 68 points. The men's was only 60, so the girls did it better, slightly better, but absolute domination. 11-12, 78 for the Lions, 1-4-10 for the Swannies. It wasn't dominant. They were dominant the whole way, let's be honest. It was 4-1 at half-time. But Brisbane's last quarter was huge. They kicked 6 goals, 3 in that last quarter to 0-3 for the Swans. So they were already home, and they just put the absolute foot down in that last quarter. And, runaway comfortable victors, which keeps their top 2 chances alive. They would need Hawthorn to lose this week, but it's feasible. You can't write it off as a chance. Team stats for this one, as the scoreboard says, just flat out domination for the Lions. Almost 100 extra disposals, 91 more than Sydney, plus 18 inside 50s. Forward efficiency was outstanding from Brisbane. They were getting shots from their forward entries very well. One downside was they lost clearance game, but evidently didn't matter. 184 uncontested possessions for the Lions, which is an unreal number in the AFLW. And just the 52 turnovers compared to Sydney's 67 was a flat out domination this match. No doubt about it. Sydney have had a rough season. They've only won 2 games this year, and one of them was the opening round. They've had a rough run with injuries. There's no doubt about it. It's been a rough time, but it's been disappointing for them. They would have been hoping to play finals this year, and they're going to end up a long way away from that. Potentially could win the last game of the year, but best that they can finish is 15th. Hypothetically, but very, very, very unlikely, they could still go wooden spoon. But that's not going to happen. Best players for this one. Final game of the round. Multiple goal scorers first. Taylor Smith kicked 3 for the Lions, and Isabel Dawes kicked 2. Also for the Lions, obviously. Best players. Throw a blanket over the Brisbane Lions team. This is very similar to the men's grand final, in all honesty. They had a lot of good players. A lot of players that performed. Choosing best on ground is tough in this one. There's probably 4 or 5 options for Brisbane, in all honesty. Taylor Smith obviously had 15 touches, 3 goals. Was really good. Sophie Conway, 25 touches and a goal, as always, just running and kicking and doing all the good stuff, was really good. Ola O'Dwyer had 22 touches, missed 2 goals, so could have been best on if she had maybe put them through. Isabel Dawes, 22 touches and 2 goals. Ali Anderson, 23 touches. Just a really well-rounded performance. And that's not to mention the next 6 good players that they had in Campbell, Spark, that's Kathy Spark, Grider, Hickey, Ellinger, Mullins. Like, their team was really good in this one. And Sydney, hard to find too many good ones. Laura Gardner, sorry. Don't know where I got Lucy from. Was good with 27 touches. But outside of that, there's not much to write home about. They're just limping their way to the finish line for the season. So all the votes will go the way of Brisbane. But who exactly gets them? There's probably 5 people fighting for the best on ground, and probably 12 people playing for votes. So a really good performance from them, no doubt about it. So that takes us to my footy tips for the week. So I do my tips on Monday, ready for the podcast. We didn't do great. We got 6, and obviously the draw makes it 7 this week. In my tipping that I did right before first bounce of the week in my actual tipping competition, did get 9 of 9 this week and only 6 points off the margin. So I did do better. I did switch my tip for the Bulldogs over St Kilda, and I also switched the one for Hawthorn because, Hawthorn, you can't go past them enough lying. And my early week tip of Melbourne, obviously I changed my mind on that. So as you can see, we got the first one wrong. We then got on a bit of a run. We got 4 in a row. There was obviously the draw. We got St Kilda wrong, but then finished with 2 more. 7 out of 9, still pretty good. 62 out of 89 for the season, which is pretty solid. It's not world beater, but it's pretty solid. 1 week left of the season, home and away season. So let's jump into that, because that is the important stuff. Where will each team finish? We start with Friday Night Football, and it's one of the bigger games, no doubt about it. It's Geelong, Adelaide. Geelong fighting for their season, I guess. Technically can still play finals. They would need a lot of luck. But to give themselves a chance, they have to beat the Crows, which isn't against the realms of possibility. Adelaide haven't been at their best over the last 5 or 6 weeks. In my opinion, I think they've dropped off a little bit. Like, that's been my pick. Early season, they were my pick. At the moment, it's impossible to go past the Kangaroos. I still think Adelaide are probably second best. As a team, I don't think they're the second best on current form. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. If they want to, they have to win this. If they lose, they will pretty much certainly drop out of the top four because either Fremantle or Richmond will win this week. One of those two surely will win. More likely Fremantle, maybe not Richmond. So if they want to finish top four, they have to win this one. Whereas Geelong obviously need luck to play finals. Next up, we have Saturday football. We start with Melbourne Collingwood. Should be one-way traffic, you'd imagine. Melbourne should be way, way too good for Collingwood, who are going to almost certainly get the wooden spoon. The Demons, kind of similar for Geelong. If they win, they're a chance, but they would need the Bombers to lose, which is unlikely, but I guess it's not technically against the realms of possibility. So Melbourne, their slim chances are still a chance. Next up, we have Sydney v the Eagles. Swans Eagles on Saturday afternoon. This is in Sydney. Both teams kind of struggling a little bit of late. Sydney 15th on the ladder and haven't really got close to too many teams of late. Their one, I guess, close game over the last 5 weeks was a 4-point loss to Gold Coast. They did okay against the Bombers 5 weeks ago, but their end of season's been really tough. Eagles started the year well, but they've kind of struggled recently, lost their last 4, and their season has gone better than expected, so anything now is just a bonus. Could technically end up finishing 10th on the ladder with a win and some losses to the teams above them in Geelong and St Kilda. Also, they could drop down to 14th if they lose, and the Dogs and the Blues either win or don't get smacked. That's that game. Next up, we have top of the ladder Kangaroos against Gold Coast Suns in 17th on the ladder going into this. This will all but wrap up the minor premiership for the Kangaroos. I mean, they're there already. They've not lost a game. They've got a percentage of 299.5, which is just incredibly high, especially compared to everyone else in the competition. And in all honesty, it's going to rise here. It's very hard to see a world where they don't win this one by 50 plus points. They're going to get the minor premiership, and they're odds on for the premiership at the moment, and rightly so. They're going to be tough to beat. Gold Coast, they've had a tough run this year. They got off the bottom of the ladder 2 weeks ago with a win, their first win of the season against Sydney. They're not going to get another one, so they'll probably finish 17th unless Collingwood pull off a miracle against the Demons. They'll be finishing 17th on the ladder, which isn't too bad of a result for the Suns. They weren't expecting too much, I don't think, this season. Pardon me. Final game of Saturday football is the Blues and the Dons. Rivalry game, 14th, 8th on the ladder. Essendon win. They play finals. Simple as that. It won't be an easy first week of the finals because they're going to be playing, in all honesty, likely to be Adelaide or Fremantle, maybe Richmond, but probably Fremantle or maybe Adelaide. So Adelaide or Fremantle probably, which neither of them are an easy game. But, their fate's in their hands. The women's team for the Bombers has never won a final yet. They've played in one final last year. So they'll be hoping that they can break that. And to do that, they need to win this week and then obviously cause an upset in week 1 of the finals. We move on to Sunday football. First up, Saints, Lions. Another one that shouldn't be that hard to pick the winner, you wouldn't think, the way the Saints are playing of late and the way the Lions are playing. Brisbane still can get second on the ladder if the Hawks go down, which plays straight after this game. So Brisbane win, get a solid win. against St Kilda here could get them up to second on the ladder. Either way, it looks pretty much certain that we're going to have Hawthorn Brisbane week 1 of the finals. It's just going to be a matter of whether that game is in Melbourne or in Brisbane. At the moment, probably you'd say it's going to be in Melbourne for Hawthorn on top, but you never know. Hawthorn don't have the easiest of games to finish the season. St Kilda, they're 11th on the ladder. They can't make finals. Could finish 9th if Melbourne and Geelong both lose, or they lose this one and could drop a couple spots depending on results behind them. Next up is game of the round, no doubt about it. Richmond Hawthorn Sunday afternoon football at 3:05. This is the game to watch for the weekend, I think. Most important game of the round also, just about. I mean, depending on other results, how they've gone before this one, will determine how important it really is. I mean, if by some miracle the Kangaroos lost, then Hawthorn could be playing for top of the ladder, which would be an incredible achievement for them. I don't think it's going to eventuate that way, but you never know. So, Hawthorn will be playing for a home final, though, in week 1. They've got the double chance already, but this would really a win seals them top 2. Whereas Richmond, they're guaranteed finals. They can't miss finals, but whether they can finish 5th or 6th and have a home final or not will be important. If they win, they seal a top 4, a home final at least, unless both Adelaide and Fremantle lose, and then they would have an away final, but top 4 chance, a second chance. So everything to play for the Tigers. They've let themselves down the last 2 weeks. They haven't had the easiest finish, but losing to Melbourne by 13 points last week, and then this weekend drawing with Essendon, has just kind of petered out their season. If they had have got a draw the other day, right now, if they had have won instead of drawing with Essendon, right now they'd be sitting 5th on the ladder, and only percentage out of 4th, and still a chance. Whereas now, all of a sudden, Port Adelaide's only half a game behind them and sniffing down their throat back. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Next game, not the final game, second last game of the home and away season is Port Adelaide GWS, starting at 5:05 on Sunday evening. GWS, their season's done. They're 16th on the ladder. Hard to see them finishing anywhere but 16th. I don't think they're going to be good enough to win this. If they were, they could arguably go above Sydney on the ladder up to 15th. And if they lose, they could go below Gold Coast and Collingwood, but I don't think either Gold Coast or Collingwood are going to win, so probably finishing 16th on the ladder. It's been a long season for them. 1 win, 1 draw. They're a long way off the elite teams, and this is not an easy finish to their season that they've had. I know it wasn't always expected to be quite this way for teams like Hawthorn, but their last 3 weeks has been 68-point loss to Adelaide, followed by 37-point loss to Hawthorn, followed by 30-point loss to Fremantle, and now they play Port Adelaide, who are coming on a 6-game winning streak. So that last 4 weeks has been brutal for them, and they're just not quite up to the standards of some of these other teams. Final game of the season, home and away season, that is Fremantle Bulldogs. Fremantle could be playing for everything here, depending what happens with Adelaide. They could be playing for a top 4 spot, which would be insane. It's hard to see a world where they lose to the Doggies. The Doggies have been a lot better over the last 5-6 weeks, outside of a couple bad results. Have shown some positive signs, but I just don't think they're ready for Freo. But at the same time, Carlton went over to Freo and beat them. And Carlton are no better than the Bulldogs, and in all honesty, probably actually worse than the Bulldogs. So stranger things have happened. If they lose, The Dockers could arguably go back down to 7th on the ladder, depending on percentage and what happens with Port Adelaide and Richmond. A win would guarantee them either 4th or 5th, depending on what happens with the Crows. So that's how the season wraps up. It's going to be interesting, there's no doubt about it. We'll jump into my tips for the final round of the home and away season. And yeah, we'll see where we think everyone will finish. So first up, we're going Adelaide to beat Geelong. Should be a good game, probably the second best game of the round. I'm tipping Adelaide, but I'm not confident in this one at all. I don't think they're playing their best football at the moment. Meanwhile, Geelong are certainly playing better over the last month or so. Next up, Melbourne should be way too good for Collingwood. No doubt in my mind about that. West Coast, I've gone for West Coast, but I'm not confident again. Sydney are just playing really badly. West Coast have dropped off a little bit, but I think they should be probably too good here. North Melbourne will be way, way, way too good for Gold Coast. Bombers, play with everything to play for, should be too good here for Carlton. We then see Brisbane should be way too good for St Kilda. From what we've seen from both of these teams, it should be pretty much one-way traffic. Hawthorn, current form says that they beat Richmond. I think Richmond have dropped off their last couple of weeks, but I expect to see them bounce back this week, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them steal this win, but my mind says Hawthorn, my heart maybe says Richmond in this one. Port Adelaide should be way too good for GWS, and Fremantle way too good for the Doggies. A very one-sided round of football, if in all honesty. Like, there's not too many close games in the markets. Like, the Adelaide Geelong one's reasonably close. The Sydney West Coast one as well, as a game that's not any final contenders, but could be a good watch anyway. And other than that, there's not too many games that both teams really have a solid chance. Maybe the Richmond-Hawthorn one. So if my tips were to go 9 of 9, the AFL ladder would finish with North Melbourne on top, Hawthorn 2nd, Brisbane 3rd, Adelaide 4th, Fremantle 5th, Port Adelaide 6th, Richmond 7, Essendon 8, Melbourne missing out on finals with 6 wins by half a game. I said at the start of the year 6 games was going to be enough to play finals. Well, it's not. I said maybe 6, and I was maybe wrong. It's 6.5 is probably what's going to be making a spot on the ladder. That would give us a North Melbourne Adelaide finals week 1 qualifying final, as well as a Hawthorn Brisbane qualifying final. So both the top 2 teams from Victoria. And then the other 2 games would be interstate, Fremantle Essendon and Port Adelaide Richmond. Some juicy matchups there. I really would like to see. North Melbourne Adelaide, I think, is a competitive match. Hawthorn Brisbane would be an absolute ripper, especially if it's in Melbourne. I think Port Adelaide Richmond would be a spicy one too. Port Adelaide in some fine form. Richmond, the more experienced team probably. But yeah, juicy matchups all around. That's everything for AFLW Week 10. Final round coming up this weekend. Tune in to all the games, honestly. There's going to be some good football played. It's going to be entertaining. We'll find out exactly who's going to be playing in the finals. So join me back on Monday next week for an episode reviewing the final week of the season and previewing finals week 1. It will be out early Monday. I fly to Melbourne Monday morning, so it's going to be out before I leave, obviously, because otherwise I won't be able to film it. So tune in, AFLW Finals Week 1 preview / Week 10 a review. Next Monday, I'll probably also try and do a video on all the teams that got eliminated, their season review. That might take a week or so while I'm away, but we'll see. I'll work on it nonetheless. AFL Men's episode of the podcast will be coming live. Episode 72 will be live on Friday, which will be looking at every team's season reviewed, graded. I'm going to be doing a grade for every team in the AFL Men's competition. So tune in, check that out. We've also got another YouTube video coming up that is going to be every single AFL player ranked for season 2024. So check that out as well. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on YouTube, I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in to the Moon, guys. Catch us on the next one.